Welcome, everybody, to the Analytics Say. I'm Jack Settleman from the Knights of Degen, of course, and Cynthia Frelund will be joining us momentarily. How's everyone doing? Please utilize the chat on the right side of my screen so I can answer everyone's questions. You saw already this week that our great Knights are off without me. I'm down here in sunny Florida. I have a wedding this weekend, so I was unable to make it to our offsite, but a lot of really good stuff being built there. I was tuned in to a ton of those conversations. And the alpha is there's some really, 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 really cool and interesting stuff coming. They shared it with you guys, I believe, on Twitter, so you probably saw a little bit of it. But I've got Agent Squirrel in the chat. I don't know how to pronounce that, but Knight's going to make it, and we are very excited. By the way, there are 2 spots left in the Star Stock remint tonight. So as we bring up Cynthia now to get the show started, make sure you check that out. I'll be live streaming that 9 Eastern tonight on Star Stock. You can buy an OpenSea token, which will give you one of the last 2 spots. You have a chance to win a Galactic Knight ranking in the top 1% of all our Knights holdings. So let's get Cynthia in here. Let's talk about what the analytics are saying. Cynthia, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you? How's Florida?
Florida is nice. It is very warm in the middle of January. You can wear flip-flops and t-shirts. No complaints from me. What about yourself?
California's cold. It was like 46 degrees this morning when I woke up. So that felt weird. I was, I'm a Midwesterner, but when you move to California, you're like, it's supposed to be warm here all the time. So when it's not, like I'm wearing like 75 layers and freezing and pretending like it's like negative 30 outside, but whatever. I've lost my Midwestern hardiness.
There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm totally fine with that. I am fine with that. I don't ever want to be cold again.
It's definitely that's how I felt when I went down to school at Texas. I'm actually rocking my Longhorn tee.
There you go.
But you move from the East Coast down south, you never want to give up that good weather ever again.
Never. Anyways,
so
yeah, let's go.
Let's get into it. I think our first topic today that I'm really, really interested in, I want to hear your viewpoint on, is Week 18 in the NFL is going to be a pretty crazy one. We've still got some playoff teams. We've still got some seeding to be seen. But the biggest game that was moved to Sunday Night Football is Raiders versus Chargers. And one of the more interesting things all season is Brandon Staley. He comes in, new head coach, super aggressive. Analytics, maybe we can talk about that more in depth. But one of the things that I'm most interested in the storyline here is not only are we in prime time, so all the people who hate analytics are going to come out when he goes for his first 4th down that fails. But really, if you've ever seen the movie Moneyball, what they say at the end is, over 162 games, over a playoff series, the numbers are going to provide better outcomes time after time. But when it comes down to the last at bat of the season, you kind of throw out all the numbers. It doesn't matter if he's hitting 340 on the season, 280. It's one at bat for all the marbles. I'm curious your thoughts on what this might look like in Raiders Chargers. Will he just throw out any gut feeling, any momentum, and just play by the numbers? Or do you have to reevaluate because you're not going to get a large sample size here? What do you think?
I love the Brandon Staley aggressive on the bottom line or something. Anyways, first of all, if for some reason, now there's some scenarios now, of course, like some craziness has to happen, like the Jags need to, or the Colts need to lose rather. So yes. Unlikely to happen. But if somehow the Texans pull that off, interestingly enough, they could tie and then kick the Colts out of the point is, I mean, wouldn't that be funny if they just did we're just going to end this in zeros?
Not funny. I'm a Ravens fan. I'm rooting for the Jags to beat the Colts. If we somehow get that upset and then these 2 teams decide to just be buddies and move on to the playoffs, I will be very disappointed.
I just think, it's just funny.
It would be amazing.
Right? It would never, ever happen. But it's just like the idea of that a tie could send them both in and kick the Colts out and this whole, anyways. But the long story short is I think the thing that there's 2 things I've noticed when I went back and tracked this entire Chargers season. The first is I think they unloaded their weapons a little bit too soon, meaning I think they had this game plan where they're going to say, here's our identity. We are going to be an aggressive 4th down team, and we're going to be aggressive play calling wise, just no matter what. But unfortunately, I think what happened is they showed too much of their hand in like the first 6 weeks of the season. So when they had those, those fourth down calls, and early on, it was very, very interesting to see how they were working, right? And it was like working really well. It's because a lot of times defenses weren't ready for them. And that's kind of one of the advantages that analytics have in NFL speak, because you start to see you're bucking the pattern of the defense. You're bucking the trend of what the defense thinks you're going to do. So that's the first thing. Like, are these fourth downs going to continue to work? Because now the defense has seen it, and I don't know if they're coming up with new plays, right? The second thing is you actually have the chess piece here in Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert, he has been better against the pressure than he has, then I think it's something like, depending on which metric you're looking at, he doesn't rank less than 5th in anything against pressure. And of course, this is a high pressure front for the Raiders, the most pressures all season long, right? They've led the league in pressures, but they don't back it up very well. That defense is easier for a quarterback to be able to read. And I think Justin Herbert can now make those reads. Also, Justin Herbert gets better when you blitz him. Good luck in finding pressure against him. So the hardest part here is going to be able to make sure that on the times that they do use their running backs, that you are getting them in unfavorable downs and distances, so that you're not in a situation where Justin Herbert is having to diagnose pressure on 3rd and short. Like, if you're a Raiders fan, that's going to be the key, is to make that pressure be efficient and effective. Because the last time it was I guess against the last interception he threw was against the Raiders. It was way, way, way long time ago. He's had no interceptions under pressure since then. But interestingly enough, that's kind of the key for me. So that's why I have the Chargers winning this game. So meaning, unfortunately, no Ravens to the playoffs, but also that would also mean it would be Colts and Chargers and not Raiders.
Las Vegas. Yeah. The Raiders, the numbers have definitely not been friendly to them this season. And so
but they've been getting the wins. The number that matters, the W, they get it. They get it.
I know. And that's the next thing we're going to talk about, which is if you flipped, I don't know if we can get the graphic or the tweet up on the screen, but if you flip all the one possession results in favor of the other team, do you know who would have the best record in all of the NFL this season?
I mean, you're going to tell me. I'm guessing it's probably like the Ravens or the Raiders.
No. It's the Bills. So
okay.
I'm curious if you think they would be something like 15-2, meaning when they've won handedly, and when they've lost close games. You remember the game against the Titans, Josh Allen slipped on the 4th and 1. Does this mean anything to you? And then I'm looking at the NFC and I see 2 playoff teams there in the wild card. I'm not buying the NFC wild card teams, but does this mean the Eagles or the Cardinals maybe have some life come playoff time?
Okay, so the first thing, both of the interesting, so to me, the Bills, that would be my problem with the Bills now versus the Bills in those one possession games is they're missing a really key piece. Tre'Davious White matters. You can't underestimate. You lose your best corner, arguably top 3 corner in the league. I mean, some people would say 1, 3. I don't think anyone would be like, yeah, he's less than 3. No, you lose that guy. Things change. Your pass defense changes. This is a really good defense, but they're even better when they have their best pieces there. So I'm curious to see how this looks. Not this week. I'm not really worried about the Jets. Not an offensive thing to say, but I'm not really worried that the Jets passing game is going to be lighting or torching the Bills defense. But I think that's going to come into play more significantly on teams that are far more like, I don't want to see what, like, the Bengals would be a really bad matchup for the Bills right now, because if you look to see what are the Bengals just doing, they're torching everyone in the pass catching game. So that one's interesting to me. Hello, Smokeopotamus. I like it. But anyway, so long story short, it's to me, the Bills I think that they're a very dangerous team. If they can control, if the Bills can play Bills football, if they can control the possessions, then it's going to be very hard for any team to beat them. Same thing with the Chiefs. We saw the Chiefs drop one to the Bengals last week. But if you look to see the Chiefs' strength of schedule, like, look at who they've played. Their entire playoffs is going to be revenge tour. So it's going to be hard. You don't really beat Andy Reid twice. Like, that's hard to do. So especially, what they didn't do last game, they didn't adjust to Jamar Chase. And there was a question about Jamar Chase that we should get to in a second here, but they didn't adjust to what Jamar Chase would do. He had at least 3 yards of separation on all of his receptions. And I mean, you don't set these kind of records, for passing yards or receptions in a game on deep passes if the defense doesn't screw something up. So this is not something I would imagine happens twice. Steve Spagnuolo does not allow his defense to do that twice. And I don't know if it's just that they didn't account for him or they were more concerned about T. Higgins, but this is a game, this is a team who could be pretty dangerous come playoffs with all of their different pass catching options. And I think Joe Burrow needs to talk about more for not just comeback player of the year, but he at least should be spoken of in MVP. I mean, I'm not suggesting he should win it, but people are like, no, that could never happen. And like, oh no, Dak Prescott came back from something way worse. Like, what are you talking about? He tore his ACL, PCL, and LCL. Like, we're good here. Like, that's all of it. Or MCL, 3 of the LCL, collateral, whatever the ligaments are in your knee. So it's, I mean, at least should be talked about a little bit more. And then you come back, we'll get to the NFC in a minute, but I think it's interesting. It's an interesting note about the Bengals.
Absolutely. They have glorified Dak Prescott's injury and just thrown Burrows out the window. And not to mention that Cowboys roster is fantastic. They have built a great team around him. It's not like Cincinnati went out and beefed up that offensive line. They just drafted a stud wide receiver. Now that's helping Joe Burrow, but he's still playing behind a very shaky offensive line. We will get to that MVP.
48 or 9 times. I mean, it's like top 5 in the NFL in sacks. Like,
crazy.
And this guy's still crushing. He threw for almost 1,000 yards in 2 games after getting his hat knocked off every single down. So I mean, I'm not suggesting Dak Prescott isn't good, but the fact that you don't hear any national media pundits going to the mat for Joe Burrow. I guess I'll do that, right?
I guess that's your job. Aggressive. Joe Burrow, aggressive. Let's go to the NFC real quick. Cardinals and Eagles were at the top of that chart. You buy, obviously we need context. If a team was down 14 points or 17 points and they scored 2 minutes left, that's, a lot, or 14-7. That's a 1 possession game. That doesn't really count. But do you buy the Cardinals or the Eagles having a little more juice than we initially thought?
Yeah, I think the Cardinals have had an interesting run because the past 2 games they have a really strong defense. And the past 2 games especially, I've seen their defense adapt to situations better than they had in the beginning of the season. My biggest knock on them in the beginning of the season was they irrationally didn't adjust to when the offenses were starting to figure them out. Their offense was good. And then, of course, they had to adjust to no DeAndre Hopkins, which is always hard to adjust to be missing your best wide receiver by far. But then you look to see the numbers and you see, okay, now what has this Cardinals defense been doing over the past 2 games? They've stopped outside zone rushing. And right now, that is the trendiest thing in the NFL. Can you rush on the outside? You're going to win a game. And they've been stopping them really efficiently and effectively, not allowing first downs. They've improved their stopping first downs on those types of runs by 30%, which is a huge number. So that's really important going into the playoffs where, I do have them earning the first seed, meaning I have San Francisco upsetting the Rams this week here in Los Angeles. But either way, the Cardinals are going to have a tough test. It's likely they'll face one of their NFC West opponents in the first round. That's their most likely outcome, either being the Rams again or most likely the Niners if the Niners make it.
Wow, that would be super fun. You always see teams playing for the division, seeding, and we've seen in the past teams not throwing games, but maybe not starting their starters to avoid. It comes back to bite them. I think of the Bears a few years ago in honor of the double doink. Sorry, Bears fans. Let's talk about those Bengals real quick. What do the analytics say on Jamar Chase? What are the odds that he was going to have these 2 performances on back-to-back weeks and seriously won the offensive rookie of the year?
Yeah, I mean, okay. So I don't know if I think, unfortunately or fortunately or whatever, I don't know if Jamar Chase will be the offensive rookie of the year.
Really?
I think it's probably still Mac Jones because for whatever reason, I'm not a voter. I would like to be a voter. I don't know who I need to petition to become some sort of voter for this because I think there needs to be less bias in it. But it's often, it's almost always a quarterback, and it's almost always a quarterback who makes the playoffs. So it's going to be hard for it not to be Mac Jones just by virtue of the fact that the media, and I don't know when they vote too. I think the day that they vote matters too, because that people always have recency bias. So I think between recency bias and quarterback bias and, the Bengals are like the little engine that could, nobody kind of gave them a chance ahead of the season, as opposed to the Patriots who every year well, they have Bill Belichick. So if they don't make it to the playoffs, then it's a big bust. So it's going to be hard. That I'm not suggesting that's who should win it, but I'm just saying based on past precedent, that's probably who will win it. If that's kind of where I take that. But Joe Burrow isn't just good when Jamar Chase is good. The reason that they had a faster start out of the gate is because they had familiarity with each other. They played college together, and then of course that always helps, right? And then being able to understand that you always hear it from quarterbacks. Reggie Wayne, who he gets to work with, he would always talk about how he knew when based on the temperature, the play before, how often he knew how fast or slow or whatever Peyton Manning was going to get the ball out to him. They had so much familiarity with each other that he just knew his nuances, right? So that's the kind of, I'm not suggesting that they're Peyton Manning and Reggie Wayne yet, but I think that kind of familiarity illuminates what is already there, which is that they're more familiar with each other, so they're going to get a better outcome. Now, defenses will not let what happened last time happen again. Go back and watch all of those catches. He was wide open. I'm not sure why there weren't adjustments made. I'm sure that it has something to do with, look, they were looking at T. Higgins. They had game planned for what you'd been seeing in recent weeks, which was a really big foundation of T. Higgins and then Jamar Chase on some luckier deep balls. So maybe they just were well, we'll forfeit this to get rid. I don't know. I'm not Steve Spagnuolo. I don't know what the plan was, but no one's going to do that again because you don't get 266 yards in a game. There's a reason why that rarely happens. It's literally historic.
It was impressive to watch. This show is about the numbers, and I want to segue us into the Defensive Player of the Year race. But real quick, based off the numbers, should Creed Humphrey, I know it's quarterback bias, and I know he will never win the award, but by the numbers, he might be the best center in the whole league as a rookie. Should he have a chance? Should we just give him his flowers in honor of how impressive he's been?
So for me, if I were telling you my top three in order, my three would be Najee Harris, then I'd have Creed Humphrey, and then I'd have Jamar Chase.
Wow.
And that would be my order. In part because number one, without Najee Harris, there's no way the Steelers would have been playoff relevant for as long as they were. The volume alone dictates that. The kid got better every single week after being trucked by some of the meanest hitters in all of the NFL. So Najee Harris should get some shine here, and he didn't have any rookie drop-off, which for a running back is especially impressive. I guess maybe you should say, because Alabama is always playing until March somehow, that maybe that has something to do with it. But either way, he had no drop-off. He kept getting better. He's just he's a kid that you want to root for. He's just a grinder, and that was interesting. And Creed Humphrey, absolutely. But the positional value of center, no matter what, the positional value of center is less impactful towards the bottom line of wins.
Right, but it's not the MVP award, which is why I'm interested. Could we, in the future, if he was the greatest center of all time, he was a Hall of Famer in year one, could we reason we're not talking most valuable? We're just talking about who is the best rookie this year. That's why I want to give Creed some love. But let's flip it to the defensive side of the ball. You've got TJ Watt. He's a sack away from the all-time sack record. You've got, obviously, the two Cowboys, Diggs, who has no shot now that everyone is aware of how awful he's actually been, dependent on his interceptions. You've got Micah Parsons, who as a rookie, it would be incredible. But the analytics say, Cynthia, that I saw a graph this morning. Aaron Donald is winning more double teams than pretty much the rest of the league combined. And I've seen others say every year that Aaron Donald is in the NFL for the rest of his life, he should probably be the Defensive Player of the Year. Is there voter fatigue? Should he be the Defensive Player of the Year?
For me, it's harder to make the argument for, I will say the only other person that you're missing from that list is Trey Hendrickson, going back to the Bengals for a second, because he does lead the league in pressures. So that there's something to be said for that. The problem with competing against Aaron Donald is that if you go back and watch the film, it's not just double teams. It is triple teams. It is gang tackling this man. What are you doing? You are literally offenses are figuring out how they have to play 8 on 11. Well, I guess 10 if they neutralize Aaron Donald, because they're throwing so many assets and resources into stopping this man. So I think it's very hard to argue anyone else. And watching those double and triple, like it's something like I was looking at it yesterday or the day before, like I went back and I traced it like historically, like guys who have the scary names, Reggie White, like all these scary players. And it's nowhere near the rate of double or triple teams. Like he's like 15% more double or triple teams than the next closest historical figure. And I was trying to like do it with like literally everyone who is LT, like scary people. Nope, not even close. So it's going to be really hard for me to argue that it's anyone else. But I would like to give a little love to Trey Hendrickson, who does not get enough love. Again, I'm not a huge Bengals fan, but I think people
sounds like you're a homer of the Bengals.
I don't even like the like I'm neither here nor like I forget about the Bengals. Like it's, and then that's not in a mean way. It's just like they're just not on my radar, you know. Like, but I still think sometimes we underrate or overrate. Like Micah Parsons is going to be the defensive player of the year, rookie of the year, and he should be. But I don't think he's like the overall defensive player of the year. No, like like that means wins and changing the dynamic to win. And yes, he's done great, done well, best among the rookies. Got it. But Aaron Donald is just, he's like he got on the rocket ship and he's way up there.
What can you say to the Steelers fans who, when TJ Watt undoubtedly breaks the record against my Ravens on Sunday, they're going to clamor, he broke the all-time record. Obviously, there was an extra game, but he was one away, and he's been so close over the past few years to winning the award. They're going to lose their minds. I know that. So what do you say to those fans?
He's great. There's no doubt about it. He's awesome. Like there's no like denying that. Like, you know, it's like there are other people in the NBA who were good when Jordan was playing, but like he's still Jordan. I mean, it's not an indictment of TJ Watt that someone's better. Like,
right.
And you don't have to like to me, the award is his I think his bank account reflects that he's pretty darn good. So at the end of the day, like, I don't think those awards should be, you know, it shouldn't just be on some stat that has a bit of luck involved in it. I mean, sacks are lucky on some regard, you know, like I think.
Yeah, I don't hear people cheering for Robert Quinn to be in the conversation. He had a fantastic year.
He did.
But did he? Yeah, but does he deserve to be in? So I totally hear you on that.
So, I mean, I'm sorry. It's not a mean thing. It's not personal. It's just.
Everyone loves to take it personal.
I know. That's half the fun. And by the way, we didn't even get to that Eagles stuff. And I know we've got Eagles fans that listen because last week for sure. It's funny because almost every way I run model scenarios, they're playing the Bucks round one. Like 91% of the playoff bracket simulations that I ran, they play the Bucks, whether or not they're the 6th seed. So like if the Rams lose and they're, you know, if they're the 6th seed or if they're the 7th seed, it just ends up that the way that they get into the seeding makes it so that the Bucks switch spots. So they're playing the Bucks round one, which is interesting because, you know, Todd Bowles is masterful at stopping his run situation is very, very good. And the Eagles are a very, very dominant rushing team. So it'll be interesting to see if that strength versus that strength can hold up. Obviously depends on who's available to play in that one, but.
Yeah, my favorite thing with Eagles fans is they don't watch this show enough because they'll throw out all the numbers and they'll just say, well, we beat Tom Brady in the Super Bowl, so we will surely beat him in this playoffs. If you know an Eagles fan, you know they're thinking that.
Oh, for sure. 100%. And I really also enjoyed that, like, they were like, well, of course the Bears will win when Nick Foles plays because Nick Foles. And you're like, what? I mean,
and
it's not a bad thing, but
that was the funny. All right, the team we have to talk about because it's week 18 in the NFL is the New York Jets because they haven't been in the playoffs for like 10 weeks. But what they are doing is something that I love for all my Jets fans, which is they did it a few years ago with Darnold. He rated as the top quarterback over the final 6 games of the season. And so for a full offseason, they talked themselves into this kid. He's still going to be the savior. And we know how that played out. Zach Wilson doing something very, very similar. He has been pretty good over the last few weeks. They've played tough against really good teams, which, you know, I don't like moral victories, but if you're a Jets fan, that's pretty much all you can hold on to. So any word on if what we've seen from Wilson and the Jets could actually carry over into next season?
Yeah, look, the Jets, here's what the Jets have going for them. They had a great draft class. Now, They weren't one draft class away from being a winning team, but they did a good job. Elijah Vera Tucker, he's been excellent, right? Michael Carter, the running back. They also have a cornerback named Michael Carter. Very confusing, but Michael Carter, the running back, he's been excellent. Obviously, he's been in and out of the lineup with some injuries, but when he's been available, he's really good at yards after contact. He's been a really great addition to this team. Elijah Moore, by the way, he leads their team in rush yards. Elijah Moore leads their team in receiving yards. That's also a rookie. He's also been battling injury. Not ideal, but he's also, but the point is they seem to have a formula here for success. And their secondary, they're made up of guys who are high draft picks and young, and they've been playing pretty well. I mean, Brandon Eccles with that, he picked off Tom Brady and had him sign the ball. Like, I would have done that too. That's great. Like, enjoy. We all need stuff for our mantle. It's great. But at the end of the day, Bryce Hall has been playing better. I know it looked like he got torched against Mike Evans, but by the way, a lot of really good corners do as well. And they hadn't seen looks like that in quite some time. And by the way, it's super hard to play when literally someone quits in the middle of the game. Who is Cyril Grayson? We don't know. Where are they going to use him? We have no idea. Now, I don't think the Bucs knew, but at the end of the day, chaos, it favors the team that gets to plan as opposed to the team that has to react. So I think Bryce Hall looked awesome. So my point is there's a lot to be excited for the future. But here's the thing about Zach Wilson, kind of poetic. You know whose numbers he looks very similar to this season? Josh Allen.
Boy.
Josh Allen's numbers from his first season look strikingly similar to Zach Wilson's. I'm not suggesting that he's going to turn into Josh Allen because they have different body types and there's a lot going on there. Josh Allen's hip base means he's less likely to get injured in general too, which is a good thing because especially playing up in Buffalo. But I'm not suggesting he's turning into that. What I'm suggesting is that there's a learning curve and he hasn't reached his learning curve yet because it took Josh Allen a little while to be able to do that. And remember, when you look to go back to, the college days for Zach Wilson, he had a really good O-line. They got play action going. Oh my God, he was masterful with play action. And they had a really strong run game. Now, the coaching staff at the Jets right now came from the 49ers. They know how to orchestrate really good play action. They know how to get a run game going. You need to give them healthy running backs and, maybe get some of those wide receivers back when you're playing with Braxton Berrios as your leading receiver.
Hey, no Braxton Berrios slander.
I love Braxton. Listen, I'm actually a Braxton Berrios fan because I love he's like the little engine that could. And but at the end of the day, it's like if you're all these guys you paid all this money for aren't even playing, good luck, Zach Wilson. But the point is they'll get it together, and I think it will look a lot better next year. There's a lot to have hope for here, and I think getting that play action going, we saw hints of it last game. That's going to be the difference maker for them.
There you go, Jets fans. You can hold on for one more offseason of Zach Wilson.
I think he's going to be good. I'm more worried about Trevor Lawrence than I am about. I don't know what I think about Trevor Lawrence because it's going to be very hard to deprogram whatever was programmed down in that poop fire.
Absolutely. I think that's a great tease for next week's show. We'll dive into Trevor Lawrence, who I have picked as a first ballot Hall of Famer. Year one, not so hot, but
I'm going with Justin Fields. Justin Fields is my favorite there. I think he's going to look good. I think he's going to look really good.
Any parting shots as we get ready to head into the final week of the regular season?
I think we needed to put together 3 teams to go with the Chiefs for one of our friends. So I think we need to go Chiefs to win.
Mm-hmm.
Add to that, this is a tricky week in terms of who has something to play for and who doesn't. Stay the heck away from anything to do with the Bengals and Browns. That is a game that who's even playing? The quarterbacks, it's gonna be funny to watch, funny, haha, not funny, oh my God, I should do something. Don't do that. Stay away. I would say though, don't you like the Niners to win straight up? So maybe. Yes. So that's my upset. So the things that I would package together would be, if you want to go very safety, then you put the Colts, and the Titans. Colts, Titans, and then package that with the Chiefs. That is boring McBorrington though. So I would say add a little flavor to that. And let's go with you want to probably take the Colts, no offense, or the Titans, one or the other, right? Colts or Titans, and then add to that the upset with the Niners over the Rams. And I think the Cardinals win this one pretty handily too. By the way, remember last time against the Seahawks, Kyler Murray wasn't playing, but I think this is going to be a much better. And they won last time too, but I think that it'll look a little prettier too.
My favorite team in Week 18 is the Falcons. Everyone believes the Saints. They're playing for something. The Saints only have one more win this season than the Falcons. I don't think the gap is that big. And the Falcons get a chance to play spoiler. I think teams like that more so than they lead on. So look to see who's on the field. But I like the Dirty Birds in Atlanta.
I think that's a really smart pick. Their defense, I think that I saw something really tasty for Taysom Hill to throw an interception. And I think that's something. I think AJ Terrell has something to say about that. So I like that interception. I don't know about the final score in that one, partly because a little bit I don't know who's playing. There just feels like there's a lot of question marks there. So final score, not so sure, but I think Taysom Hill to throw that INT. I think that Dean Pease defense is ready for him, but it's really hard for me to pick against Sean Payton in this spot, just because somehow that man has a rabbit and he pulls it out of the hat right at the last minute. But I'm with you on teams wanting to play spoiler for sure.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Knights, for tuning in to the Analytics Say. That is Cynthia Frelund. I am Jack Settleman. Join us tonight on Star Stock. We are doing a remint. There's a couple spots open. I'll be live streaming 9 Eastern. Until next week, peace out.